kind of like the warm-up band for the concert. So basically what I'm here is I'm just going to give you a little bit of an overview on local government, and then I'm going to turn it over to the main event. Okay, so why am I here? You know, we're happy you're here for one thing. We've worked with the town to work with the Business Development Council, and we've joined a collaboration to say, you know, we're achieving the same goal. You as people that are looking to do business with the government, and we are wanting to do business with the government. We need suppliers, we need contractors, we need those types of things. It's a great fit. We've had some great presentations before, and we're kind of furthering that with doing business with the town and also how these gentlemen can help you along the way. Because some of our stuff, our regulations and stuff with the federal you're going to see today is very confusing. And some of it stuff is a lot of paperwork, a lot of things to cross the T's, dot the I's, go through that stuff, and it can be a very bureaucratic maze of how do I get there and how do I be successful and how can I do this. So you have some great teachers today that know how to do this stuff and can help you to get through that roadmap. That roadmap is a tough one, okay? And even on our own side, from a local government standpoint, we have those roadmaps as well, but you're talking about the federal government, you're talking about big, organization. So again, great job on your part to be here today. From a local government standpoint, okay, if you get to one of these contracts, that doesn't just put you in the arena of, hey, I'm doing business with the local or the federal government. It can open a door for you to do business with counties and also local government, because we actually utilize these contracts. And we utilize them through what we call cooperative purchasing or piggybacking. So it will leverage your ability to be able to use those contracts to come to a local government and say, I have a GSA contract. And if it fits on the schedule or it fits in a category where we can purchase off of those, we use those contracts. We use them for safety, we use them for IT, like public safety, anything public safety. We've purchased mobile command units with them. We've purchased, all of our police equipment, safety supply stuff through that. IT is a large area, consulting and all other things combined. So again, these are some strong areas that you can leverage down as well as the federal government itself. So it's all up to you. And I'm sure these guys are going to go through this and kind of talk about how you can, focus on getting to this contract, which is your end game, obviously, because you're here today. But there's other ways for you down the line to be able to leverage that. So with that, I'm going to step out of the light, let the main event happen. My name is Brian O'Connor. Again, I have some business cards over there. If you would like to take some of them, contact me. Talk about local government. We also have some other, again, presentations based on local government. So again, but with that, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Brian, you're the main event. What are we doing? Good morning, everybody. How's everyone doing?
Great.
You got here through the rain, and I'll move over here to the camera. And so God bless you for that, because I was dodging quite a bit of vehicles here and there. So I'm just glad to be here, safe and sound. My family probably appreciates that. So this is my first time presenting this specific presentation. Okay, so I'm just laying up all my cards on the table. Right? What I have presented this material before, and a lot of it was just informational and a little dry. And then I redrafted it so that I could actually present it the way I talk to people about it. And I realized making it more practical and making it a little bit more understandable was kind of my goal. So you're my test today to see if it actually makes sense to you. The role of the Small Business Development Center is to build confidence. All right, we're here to build your confidence in terms of your entrepreneurial venture. Okay, now I always tell people, I'm here to keep the dream alive, okay, but I'm not here to, inflate fantasies, okay, so I can't do that. I can only live on Earth with you, but whatever planet you're on, I will travel to your planet, but I can't stay. Does that make sense? So a lot of my presentations are, you know, I try to keep things really as practical as possible, but there's a caveat here, which is that I have a personal belief that everyone has an entrepreneurial part of them. There's a part of you that wants to hustle, okay? And some of us have a little bit more of that entrepreneurial spirit and that entrepreneurial mentality, and some of us have, like, you know, tucked that away deep, deep, deep and just had to make money however we had to make money. I'm good with either way, wherever you're at, okay? And whatever stage of your business that you're at, I'm comfortable. So you might be sitting next to someone who's $1 million person or a 6-figure person, or someone who's early revenue, so they've made their first 5K, they made their first 10K. I view everybody as an entrepreneurial venture across the board. So for me, to dignify each stage of venture is my approach. So if you hear me speaking, some of it might not apply to you because you're in that 6-figure revenue category, but it might apply to someone who's in that 10K or 50K category. So I'm going to try to speak to everyone across the room wherever you're at. Even if you're at 0 revenue in your business, I'm going to speak to that because I never bet against entrepreneurs. I just never bet against entrepreneurs because over 10 years I've eaten some humble pie on what someone's capable of doing. You follow? You may not even know what you're capable of doing, okay? So I thank you for being here as either as a present government contractor or as a future government contractor, okay? I'm gonna be straightforward. I'm just gonna lay it out as clean as I can. Some of it's not so kind. I mean, some of it's just, you know, straight up bureaucracy, right? But there's always a way to break through. Okay, there's always a way to break through, all right? So now you know the spirit by which I'm speaking, so you have a sense of my biases, okay? My biases. You know that it's a fresh presentation. I've laid out all of my cards. We good?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to jump in. So, so my name is Jason Raji. I sometimes go by JJ. I prefer that. I'm having a midlife crisis. It's a part of the problem. And so some people buy motorcycles. I've just looked at my name and said, you know, maybe I should shorten that. So there's these acronyms, and government is full of acronyms, okay? Please do not be intimidated by government acronyms, okay? There's a reason for it. I'm not telling you why, but I'll keep that to myself. So my colleague, Antonio Lassi, also he goes by Tony. He is on our team as well. He is on the SBDC side, which is the Small Business Development Center. I'm on the PTAC side, which is the Procurement Technical Assistance Center. Acronyms. So basically what Tony does is he is a former banker, and he's been working in the lending area for years, working with small businesses for years, and working with people, depositors, for years. And so he's joined our team to kind of give back and help people think about their financing. The relationships he has with different bankers is what he also brings to the table, right? So if you have a business that you've opened, you already have a banking relationship, you could back into Tony and say, hey, do you have any other lenders? And he's going to be able to save you time because you don't have to contact all of them. He will then look through your financial statements, look at your balance sheet and say, okay, this is what this bank might do. And these small and regional banks, some of them are hungrier than maybe your Chase or your PNC. And then my colleague, Andrea John Baptiste, she is one of our relatively new consultants on the team. I'm so excited that she's part of our team because she's a natural born leader, and she's got great corporate background. She's also playing a role in the connection with the town of Davie here, and her portfolio is startups. And we had to have someone who's robust, who's like been in corporate, run startups herself, to kind of work with anybody who's coming to our program is just bonus, right? Because sometimes when you talk to someone who's a startup consultant, you get some interesting comments and statements. So she is incredibly savvy and likes to work with our teams and work with our entrepreneurs. Okay, so the topic is doing business with the federal government. I need someone to keep time for me because I'm not time conscious. So thank you. Leon's got me and Tony's got me. Okay, so let's get into it here. Okay, not moving. How do I turn it? And that's the end of the presentation. While they work on that, can I do some quick introductions, just real quick? 10 seconds, name and what your company is, or what you're trying to do. Ruby, start with you.
Okay. Ruby Cooper, I'm with Vergeability, that's my company. We specialize in wireless design.
Excellent.
Debbie Thomas, Economic Development Manager for the town of Davie.
Oh, excellent.
Hi, Sharon Ellett, CRE Program Manager, town of Davie.
Oh, good to have you.
Good, Chris Colley, Engaged Talent, Training in HR. Training in HR.
That's your company?
Engaged Talent Solutions.
Engage, okay.
Pat Monty from Marketing and Promotions.
Oh, excellent.
Michelle Brown, Noteworthy Notary Services, 24/7 notaries remotely and online.
That's for real.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Stephanie. My company is Jadot Design Studio, and I do brand strategy and graphic design.
Oh, beautiful.
I'm Norma Rocha, and I sell online on Poshmark and eBay.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
My name is Will. I have a trucking company, I have a tax office. So I have several different companies.
Oh, you have several. And I heard tax
Tax prep office and a trucking company.
and a trucking company. Oh, excellent. Okay. Yes?
My name is Camila Gonzalez, and we're from Specialist Business Construction. We're a
Excellent.
construction
Construction.
Yeah, work together, I guess. My name is Juan Gonzalez.
Yes.
We are on special spaces for trucks.
Excellent. Good to have you.
Good, yeah.
And then this is Andrea, who I mentioned earlier, who I was bragging about. So that's Andrea. All right. Oh, go ahead and introduce yourself. I'm sorry.
Okay, good morning. I'm Andrea John Baptiste, and I'm a growth specialist with the SBDC and also a consultant for close to 20 years. And I'm excited to see such a full.
Isn't it great? It's so great. It's so great. So we're so happy to have this relationship with the town of Davie because it gives us an opportunity to work with entrepreneurs like yourself. The town of Davie, they can't help you directly during the procurement process, right? So they have built a partnership with us so that we can do that with you, right? And so our relationship is focused on consulting. And so we're hosted at FAU, so I had to put, we made it to the Final Four. We were kind of just a little bit proud of that. So all right, so the Small Business Development Center, many of the team are former consultants of themselves, or they're former corporate, or they've run companies, small businesses, and so their focus is to kind of give back to the small business community. So you don't have to pay for them, okay? You've already paid, if you paid your federal taxes, which is coming up in just a few days, if you're paying your taxes, you paid our salary, okay? So you might as well, I would say, use us, because you've already paid for us, and there's nothing worse than not getting services for what you paid for. So all of our consulting is confidential, and the focus is to allow you to work with someone who's been in business or maybe has an expertise in a certain area that allow you to kind of think through the process. And I know, Norma, you've heard a little bit of this last week, so thank you for your patience. So, we just kind of get through this. So I've got these two YouTubes, I'm skipping them, but the whole focus is that we've got two programs, okay? All right, and the other point of that is that we have two bosses too. So the SBA, which is a federal department, and the DOD, and you can tell which one we're more scared of. And so, those are your tax dollars. So the goal of the SBA is to work with the entire small business community, which is the SBDC side, and then with the DOD, the goal is national interest, right? So we want to protect the government industrial base, right? So whoever's doing business with the government, they want to make sure that each of those entrepreneurs are working with the federal government, especially small businesses, are properly getting the right information and key pieces that they need. So that's how that plays out.
Can I ask you one question? Do you help with filling out because my daughter with her trucking company, is filling out the application for working for Homeland Security and Department of Defense, but it's a big thing. They want vials of blood and everything. Do you go over?
Is it a application to do contract?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's our role.
Right. So you could go over it and help her fill her out.
Yeah. So
make
under the
sure everything-
PTAC side, that's my side. So the PTAC side is we actually work with entrepreneurs as they're going through all that paperwork,
It's a lot.
and we'll read it with you. So a lot of times so a lot of times what will happen is I will have a client, a small business, who will find a solicitation. I will sometimes, in a meeting, review the solicitation with them. I remember there was this 100-page one that we did like 14 pages of the specs. It was amazing. And so, and then I will review your response. If you start building a proposal, so that's the role of the PTech side. So our small business side, they're there to kind of work on all parts of your business to support you, and we're specific to that paperwork side, right? But we're also focused on you winning contracts. So that's the role of the PTech. We'll carry on the conversation. Let me get through because I'm a little bit behind. So, the whole team is spread around the state of Florida, and there's 3 of us here in this region. And so Carol, Christy, and myself, we're on the PTech side. So we're housed together so that all the small business consultants who are working with the small business, if perchance they're ready to do government contracting, the 2 teams are working together. And I mentioned this last week, we have because we're hosted by FAU, we have a good presence of small business consultants and PTech presence in Broward. So we want to work with you because we're here. So we have a few that are actually in the downtown office of at Fort Lauderdale campus. And just quickly, I won't go into this in detail. So here's Andrea. Where's Tony? Tony's over here. So what we've done is, so that you understand how the small business, how the team is broken up, is the capital access, which Tony's a part of, all of our former bankers and our accounting support, financial support, financing, they're in that group. I'm on the government contracting side. Andrea can do all business consulting, but she has been asked to really just help our startup community make sure they make the steps into the small business community. And so to have someone robust, like I said, to help people at this stage is really critical for our program. And then we have all of these people, all these consultants, again, can do general business consulting, but then they have their own particular expertise that they can support the small business community. So Raphael can definitely do loans, and George is actually a former banker himself, but he's an artist, so he's also doing creative. And Andrew's also has the entertainment music industry. So you've got we just can't list all of that, but the team is robust. And the goal is, we can't do the work for you. We just cannot do the work for you. But if you're doing the work for yourself, then you've got a little bit of confidential support. And a lot of you may have competitors that are using us, and they look great because we've helped them polish themselves. Does that make sense? Yeah. But they're highlighting on Instagram and so on and so forth. But a lot of them are backing into us, and we'll never let that secret know. So I'll see some of my clients on the road, and I'm like, hey, I know what we did for them, but that stays within us because it's confidential. The purpose is to support the small business community, whether it's the micro businesses, small businesses, mid-sized businesses, and all communities as well, right? So just to give you a sense that the team is organized specifically for small business. This is all we do. This is all we do every day. All right, I'm going to move through this just to kind of go through some of the list. I'm on the government contracting, financing, and then we have a team here who helps with exports and logistics. So if you're also trying to sell export out into foreign markets and not just domestic, we've got a team on the research side, and there is a grant if you're part of an eligible industry. Why I bring this up is because as a government contractor, you have to work on every side of your business. So if you're trying to do business with the town of Davie, with the state of Florida, with the government of the U.S. government, your revenue growth, your balance sheet growth, as an entrepreneur, I don't need to tell you this, you're creative with how you find paths to revenue. If no one has told you that, let me tell you that. Building those paths to revenue. I have federal contractors who are actually also going after foreign markets, right? So they may not say that to you, but they either might build another venture to do that, or they might have that as a subsidiary of their company, right? And so they might build a team around that. So because of the creative nature of entrepreneurship and all the realities that could play out, we got to cover some of those aspects. So Some of these other services are part of our mix. This is our financing side, capital access. This is kind of what Tony does and the team. And because the SBA is our boss, then all the SBA lending programs that certain banks are participating in, we are kind of the field mechanism for that. So if you're working with us, you're like, okay, is there an SBA, can I do the SBA 7A program? Can I do the 504? I do need to purchase equipment. You know, do I need, and now you can back into Tony. Tony can kind of work with the banks that are SBA lenders and can work with you, okay? Why is that important in a federal government contracting seminar? Is because I need my companies to have good balance sheets. If you don't have strong balance sheets, either with your own cash or the bank's cash, we're not in business for very long. So one way or another, your balance sheet has to either be your cash or the bank's cash. And one comes before the other, just so you know. But our team is there to kind of work in that. So if you're a government contractor, you're dealing with certain agencies, not the town of Davie, who don't pay on a certain time frame that we all would appreciate. The town of Davie is not the same. And they actually have put in some mechanisms to actually do a better job. But when you're dealing with a government agency, you get paid when they want to pay. And this is a small business killer. A small business killer. Because now you're so savvy that you've won the contract against your competition, and now they're expecting you to deliver after you got the award, and then they're going to pay you when they pay you. That, I can't tell you how many small business owners that I've interacted with at either local government contractors or state or federal that just get their whole company just chopped in half, right? But if you're at that stage, you probably have people you are paying for. You have payroll. You cannot afford the government's timelines. So you understand why I have to put this at the beginning of the presentation, that financing, either financing yourself, your own company, having the retained earnings, or you've got bank debt, you've got, you know, lending and financing that's helping you get there. We good here? Okay. I get a bit preachy, so I have to kind of slow that down a little bit. So real people, we're working with real people, okay? And for me, each of these people are names, and you know, when you're working with small business, you learn their stories, you know. So like I can see specific stories as I look at these faces, and I'm grateful that we get a chance to work with individuals who are expanding themselves. It's in terms of public service, it's a beautiful thing. This is our impact. So we actually are impacting. I won't go through the numbers, but you know, in terms of jobs and sales and stuff. Okay, so all right, now I'm in. Okay, I had to get through that. I had to do the commercial. You can't be upset that I wanted to do the commercial. So we're here for this. Yes?
Yes.
We're here for this?
Yes.
All right. I gotta know what your focus is. I gotta know. I mean, is this what, I mean, you know, so you get this if you provide something in return, okay? And part of my conversation, one of the themes you'll see is that I am focused on your business being real, that you actually have tangible products and services, because now I know that a government agency will deal with you, okay? All right, benefits of the federal marketplace, okay? 2,500 buying offices, 2,500 buying offices, okay, throughout the United States. So that's a lot of buying agents, that's a lot of contract officers, that's a lot of money being spent, okay? And then, now, in my presentation, I have to write the checks are timely and issued electronically, so I have to say that, but I did say some other things earlier. You get it, right? Okay, so federal programs can lead to business with other levels of government agencies and commercial firms. So the point is, once you start doing business with government, it gives you another seal of approval so that you can actually go after even private customers as well, even some larger private customers, okay? And there's a lot of full and open competition at the federal government. How many of you have heard of set-asides? Okay. So some of you are probably even here at this presentation to learn about set-asides, okay? So the federal government does do set-asides, but there's a lot of full and open competition as well, okay? So if you fall within a set aside, you certainly should be looking at that lane, but you should also compete against the F&O as well, okay? So I'll start getting it more granular as I go. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the set aside. So Congress has legislated that 23% of all federal contracts be awarded to small businesses, okay? That's very notable. That's why you're here in the room, okay? And some of those small businesses fall into protected categories, okay? And the federal government isn't the only in a marketplace that does that. So you will, even at the local level, you'll have certain cities that will have either small business DEO programs, so they'll have a set aside for small businesses, or like Broward County. And then if you work with like Palm Beach County, they have specific set asides for minority and women, and local businesses, okay? So when you're looking at if you fall within the protected categories, you want to look at that agency and see whether they're presenting that they have those lanes. And the town of Davie has an excellent procurement website. I really encourage you to look at it. Not all procurement websites are equal, but town of Davie's, and I'm not just saying because they're paying me, it actually is a really good site. So they put a lot of information that a lot of procurement pages on other cities do not do. And so you could actually use the town of Davie to kind of learn about procurement in terms of some of the information there. And so when you go onto the procurement page of an agency, whether federal or local or state, that's where they will indicate, you know, if there's protected categories in terms of what they're willing to do business with. Okay.
One tiny.
Yes. Yes.
I
Go
know
ahead.
I
Norma.
talk too much.
No.
So
you're fine.
Broward County doesn't have for women and minorities as
Well,
much as Palm Beach?
I was careful when I said that, so good catch. So I'll walk carefully here. So Broward County has a race neutral and gender neutral program, and which means that they will certify SBE, small business enterprises, and I think CBEs, community business enterprises. There are other agencies that have programs that are a little bit more stratified, where they will actually certify you for minority and women business enterprise, and it'll be, instead of just being an SBE, you'll be an SBE and an MBE, minority business enterprise, or you could be an MWBE, minority women business enterprise. Broward County does not have that stratification
Like Palm Beach.
like Palm Beach County does, but if you compare the utilization, Broward County does better in purchasing from minority and women business enterprises, even though they don't have that, the names on paper. Whereas Palm Beach County is catching up in terms of their utilization of minority and women business enterprises, which is why they have to do that. They have to, now I'm getting the weeds a little bit, but they have to have those programming because they have low utilization in each of those categories, those protected categories. Whereas Broward County does a much better job acquiring from the different protected categories. So then, I have to be careful how I say it. So they built the program in such a way that it looks universal, but their priorities are.
Not as universal as it should be, because you do have a limited
I like, you're
amount.
fun. So I gotta jump off that because it will
Okay,
get
I know
me in
you
the
guys-
weeds.
Okay, we'll go.
Because I work with so many different agencies, so I have to make sure nobody gets tarnished, even by an indirect comment I might make. So, you guys got some of that, right? Some of that indirect stuff? Okay. I was trying to walk that through. All right, so, government agencies, paperwork. Okay, so people in my position who consult with small businesses, our goal is to like freak you out about the paperwork, okay? Purposely because we just need to get real, okay? Just be real. Now, some of us want to lower our work time, but that's a different story. But in reality, if you're pursuing government agencies, it's either a lot of paperwork that your team will have to do, but a lot of times you have to do a lot of reading, okay? So if you're comfortable with that reality, you're ready for government contracting because you have to accept that reading is fundamental and it's a really big part of business. And this is actually, when I was in government, I saw larger companies just send warm bodies at us, lobbying and sending people, and they could just keep doing it, right? And when you're in a small business and you're running your firm, you have a smaller team, or it's just you, and so it is difficult to wear all these different hats, right? And so if you're thinking about government contracting, I just want you to understand that this is just the nature of this. You just accept this reality, okay? It doesn't need to scare you away, it just needs to just keep you mature in terms of like, okay, I will have to do a lot of reading because it makes me competitive and it helps me respond to solicitations properly, it helps me look at the specs properly. So when I'm building my proposals or when I'm scripting and talking to government agencies or I'm talking to primes, I know what I'm talking about because I actually read it. Yes? Okay, so lots of paper. The purchase order side can be kind of lengthy, so when you're getting in, you're pursuing it. It can be another language, and if you just have private customers, your contracts can be a little bit more simpler, a little bit more less tedious. But in the federal, they put a lot, not just federal, but the state and local. Those contract officers really, when it comes to specs, they really put a lot in there, and it can be a tip-off of what they're looking for. So reading it is important because then you can kind of read through the specs and say, okay, that's their priority, right? A second thing that happens when I'm dealing with small business clients is that I'll get a solicitation from a small business owner and they'll say, you know what, this one doesn't look right. And so I'll go in and look at it, I'll say, oh yeah, your intuition is correct. Like they've written this for somebody, okay? All right? Or they've written it for a couple of companies, okay? And so this whole presentation could be one slide. I could say, hire a lobbyist, and that could be the end of the presentation, okay? So, because once you're at that stage where you can actually hire government relations and lobbyists, and they're expensive, a lot of this work suddenly changes, right? Because now you're on the inside game of this. And if I don't say that to you, then you know that I'm not doing my job in explaining this. So what you want to be able to do is you want to build your company to the point where you're actually down the road, whether you need to strategically bring in a government relations person or a government lobbyist, that is something down the road. And if I don't say it, I'm not doing my job. And in a few cases recently, I've actually had to say that to somebody. I said, listen, you're at this stage and you've got $1 million company and you've got $1 million worth of procurement and you're telling me you've hit every single little roadblock. You're a solid company. So the next level is, and so I just, I'm not allowed to refer any services within our service. So I just went on LinkedIn and I said, hey, these are the lobbyists out there. Here are the government relations officers. Here are the people. So I say that to you not to discourage you. I say that to you so that you can plan that is going to be part of your future if you are in the contract world, that you might need a little extra juice here and there. Yes, no?
Understand.
Okay.
And they graduated our program at that point, right?
No, they're with us.
Okay.
It's like having somebody on the inside.
Yeah, he's one of our larger ones. Yeah. So, I lost my track. Oh, okay. So when we talk about challenges, it's hard to win. It's hard to keep your morale when you think the game is rigged. And I am telling you the game is rigged. So I've been really straightforward. But just because it's rigged doesn't mean it stays permanently rigged. And doesn't mean that the rigging stays in place. And if I don't convey that, that's a missed piece. That stuff changes. Governments change. Elections have consequences. You guys get this? So things change. So what the larger companies can do is they just can keep sending warm bodies because they know they have to, right? So you're like, well, how can I, if this huge channel of people are rushing in front of me, how do I even get in there? Follow them. Pay attention. Read the news. Read your local paper. Pay attention to journals that actually give you inside information. That stuff is actually public. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised how much of this information is out there that you can capture, okay? If you're working with us, I will carefully lead you to some of these places, all right? Because, you know, I'm not allowed to refer, and I don't.
One thing I want to reiterate is trade associations.
Oh, yes.
A lot of you guys work in certain industries. Affiliate yourself with the trade associations.
Yes.
They are another way of channeling that energy.
So that is a golden remark right there, okay? So you can't hire a lobbyist now, right? But if you're part of a trade association is a large lobby for a group of small businesses. So that's where you actually want to start and find what trade associations are in your in your sector, and figure out how much you need to engage with them, whether you need to pay membership, and then look at their legal briefs, because they're writing it for the small businesses who are part of the memberships, who are paying attention and putting their strategy together. Thank you for bringing that up. I forgot, I meant to put that in there, I totally missed, because I didn't want to car lobbying too grand now. Okay, I gotta pivot here, so let's get ready. All right, how many of you feel ready for federal procurement? How many of you are ready? 1, 2, 3, excellent, 4, you're ready, okay. All right, so you're ready for it. So a lot of honest people in here. I love that. Okay. All right. So I have delineated 7 steps. Okay. There's probably 100, but I got 7 for you. Okay, because it's only so much time. So my goal here with these 7 steps is the fun part of my job is working with small businesses and small business owners is you kind of like work with people who are naturally smarter and savvier than you, so it just kind of rubs off. Does that make sense? It's intimidating, but it's also, you know, fun, because you're like, when you listen to their story and how they've gotten there and what they're going after, it's just enjoyable to kind of see how they have gotten to Z going through K, L, F, and L. But normal people just go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but entrepreneurs are like, they figure out the map in itself is rigged, so they're always moving pieces around, right? If you understand what I just said, you're an entrepreneur, okay? So what I've done is I just pulled 7 steps, okay? Michelle is shaking her head because you know I'm not lying, right? I'm not lying. So it is part of it. These 7 steps are not all of the steps, but they're just to kind of give you some guidance, okay? That's my goal. It's just practical guidance, all right? All right, so I'm starting from birth. So are you incorporated? Are you Sunbiz incorporated? Do you have your bylaws and operating agreement articles of incorporation? Actually, a lot of companies actually skip that bylaws and operating agreement. I know that because I skipped it myself, but I'm not a federal contractor, so I don't have to worry about it. So, but you may, if you are pursuing minority certification, you certainly need your bylaws and operating agreement. But some of these registrations, they will ask for these. I see Andrew just nodding her head because I imagine her consulting with hundreds of people on this. So I just want you to say, this is extra documentation, but please do it, because you might need it. And when you found a solicitation or you want to do a vendor registration and you're rushing, you're like, wait, now I got to draft my bylaws? That's not the time to draft your bylaws. That was like way back, right? Do it. It's not something you want to do, okay? But your bylaws and operating agreement is basically how you're structuring your company. And it's good for, if you're building a real company, it's a good way to have that stuff on paper anyways, you should do it. It's a need to do that no one wants to do. And generally people don't do. But if you're going to the federal contracting world, going into government contracting, you're going to have some contract officer, some vendor registration staffer who's like, hey, can I see your bylaws? And you're like, I don't have any bylaws. So just quick on that. Second piece here, document management. Okay? You heard me talk about paper, lots of paper, right? I tried to scare you. But in reality, how you manage paper, and this is hypocritical of me because I struggle with this, but if you're going to be a federal contractor, a state contractor, or a local contractor, how you manage your paper is going to make a difference in terms of your velocity and your speed to getting a solicitation, right? Because when you have a proposal and you're like, whether it's your team or yourself, and you're putting a proposal together, you've got to make sure that all of the versions of that proposal fits that particular target that you're actually soliciting for. And if you don't have those pieces ready, then because I don't need to tell you this, but in the small business world, like, you're just on it all the time. So you need to be able to access these things quickly because you might have a deadline that's due in 24 hours. You spent all night or you're on a Saturday and you've got to like punch the red button on this. If you don't have all the pieces of all your collateral or pieces about your team or aspects of your company that will sell your company to that agency, not accessible, right? Not to mention after you've been awarded and you've got a whole contract management side, right? So then your payroll and all of these pieces, your document management is a critical part. And if I don't say this at the beginning, yes, incorporation is part of it, step one, but part of step one is how do you handle this, right? Y'all are gonna have your own style. I'm not here to tell you what your style is because I'm weak in this area. I'm not the one to talk about it. But I keep seeing it as I'm dealing with so many small businesses who are in the government contracting. It's their ability to access everything and punch things really well together. Does this make sense? It's really just practical advice, but it'll save your life. You'll have no idea how you'll save your own life because you'll see a solicitation and you're like, we got a week to put that together. We got 3 days to put that together. Well, you know what? I've got everything lined up. I just need to change the names on the agencies and to make sure it's customized. Boom. I cannot, and then if you win that, it'll be like amazing because you only you know that you only put 2 days of work into it. Anyways, okay, I go too far. All right. You guys are getting this, right?
Yes.
All right. Some of my own venting is happening here. You're seeing some this is like self-therapy, so don't mind me. Okay, so I am purposely starting from birth here, so that my kids are in competitive soccer right now, and I don't know anything about soccer. Nothing. Know nothing about the game. So I'm like learning it as I'm watching them play it, and so I'm grateful. We actually have a good coach for once. And so he's teaching them fundamentals, okay? You cannot do anything in life without learning the basic fundamentals of something, right? If you're an artist, you need basic fundamentals. So business, the basic fundamentals is financial control. And I want to say this carefully. Some of you, when I said balance sheet, you're like, goodness gracious, I don't know what you're talking about, okay? All right? The accounting, okay, be careful. Accounting is a language, okay, that is for accountants. So they did it for themselves, which is why they can command the dollars that they command. Whereas business owners, we look at that like, okay, it's like, okay, all right, let me just hand this over to the CPA, let me hand this over to the accountant, okay? What I want you to focus in is, do you have financial control of your business? And you having financial control means that you'll learn aspects of accounting that are necessary and needed, right? And then you'll become dominant in it in a practical way. Every business owner, every business professional is scared about accounting. I know this because I know both sides of it. The finance and accounting sides scare everybody, okay? But it's just a discipline. Forget the lexicon, forget the jargon, it's just a discipline. It's one of the fundamentals of business. Why does this matter in federal contracting? Your financial control of your business, once you have your first great government contract, and you have serious financial control of your business, stuff works like a well-oiled machine, right? Because you may not understand every aspect of your financial statement. You may not know all your ratios. You might not know where the debit and credit is. None of that, I mean, it matters, but it doesn't matter as we portray it in the popular culture. What you need is, do you have financial control of your company? Do you know if someone's actually stealing from your business? The large reason for small business failure is partners. It's actually relationship breakdown. Small business failure happens either through cash, liquidity issues, because someone's stealing from the company, or the owner isn't paying attention to the financial side of it, or the business partners are falling off. Those are the two reasons for business failure for small businesses, nationally. And small businesses are the largest employer in America. It's you guys. You guys are the reason that we have most of the unemployment. It's not big corporate America that they just get the best talent sometimes. but it's Small Business America that's running. So what does this mean? It means that your financial control of your company is critical. I think I'm running out of time, so I'm gonna move forward. So on this piece, okay, this is a rule of thumb, okay? So don't take this super serious, but take it serious. So I would encourage you, before you enter the federal space, I would encourage you to have 2 years of customer transactions where you're just really strong with your private customers, okay? So that you worked out kinks in your team's process, you worked out kinks in your services, you worked out kinks in your products. Now, does that mean you have to have 2 years of experience? I'm not saying that, but you will have some solicitations where they will literally say, you know, these are the kind of firms that we want experience with. And then you see it more in the federal. You'll see it in some of the local, but some of the local agencies they'll put it on paper, but oh, you heard me? Okay. They don't mean it as tightly because they're trying to get as much competition. Whereas the feds, like they can get as many competitors, they don't care. So then they'll just be super sweet in the language of like, with 3 years of business, this, and this, and they just put in all the rules because they can sit at their comfy desk and write all these rules, and it can get into like 100-page solicitations, okay? It's just a game, but you understand the differences, right? So, but my only consideration is that you feel really good about where your business is at, so that when you're taking on the risk of going into the federal marketplace, it's less of a waste of time for you, and you can actually go after certain solicitations, and you're strong because you went after it. But your business is in a place where it's not perfect, but you're under financial control of it, and you know how your customers. And so then, when certain solicitations ask for testimonials, you know at least 3, 4, 5 customers you can say, oh yeah, they'll speak for me, and then you text them and say, hey, can you vouch me? And they'll actually answer the phone, right? Brian, in our last meeting, he said they look at those customer referrals in the solicitation. They say, hey, we want testimonials or we want references, and I don't remember what the percentage was, but Brian said when his team calls, a lot of time those references don't actually pick up the phone, or sometimes they'll even be embarrassing and say, we don't know who this is. So but all I'm saying is, if you've got a business that's kind of, it's kind of moving in a way, and you've got happy customers, you know that you're ready for government contracting. Does that make sense?
Yes.
2 years is just a rule of thumb, but you get the idea. But there's something about 2 years of solid operations. You grow and develop in a certain way that nothing can. So, okay, accounting term, retained earnings. How many of you know what retained earnings is? Okay, no problem. So, don't worry, so in your balance sheet, so there's the income statement and the balance sheet. There's this one little line called retained earnings, okay? All that you need to know about it is, this is how much money I'm keeping inside the business, okay? We have so many small businesses that treat their small business like a credit card, where they just pull the money out, they pull the cash out at such a volatility that they're not even financing candidates. But then it makes you also weaker on the government contracting side, because now your business isn't what we call liquid enough to take on the different, let's say you win an award or a few awards, and you're now deploying teams, and you're actually performing on the contract, but the cash inside your business is evaporating. Because now you have 2 or 3 contracts, but you can't, one of those customers, government customers, are going to be upset with you. Because this little line in your business, like, there's just not enough cash inside it, okay? And I can't tell you, every single sector we have this issue, and the bankers will tell you that, but I, as a government contractor, on the federal side, I want to just make sure that if you're going up this mountain, you got to go with cash up the mountain, okay? I know inflation is tough. I know for small businesses this is tough. But the one thing about entrepreneurs is not only are you savvy, but you're also good at disciplining yourself in ways that the normal population doesn't. You're willing to say no to things that the average individual is not going to say no. I know enough entrepreneurs who lived on ramen and built their company. So this is what I mean by financial control. Do you need to know all the accounting? Do you know what retained earnings is? No, you just need to know cash is in the business and I can go after something I want to go after. Yes? No?
Yes.
Okay. I gotta move, guys. I'm taking too much long. All right, I'm gonna skip this. Point of this was, do you execute well? All right, let's get into it. So,
Back to slide, sorry.
oh, you want? You're
Yeah,
taking a
I just
picture?
wanna take pictures.
Okay. My whole point of this is the federal government, their goal is like, so what makes you special? I've got 100 of these contractors. What makes you special? Why should I talk to you? You know, it's kind of like they won't answer emails. Some of them, they won't take calls. Some of them, they won't respond to voicemail. So you have these one shot to like make an impression. So your script of how you speak about your company, how you speak about yourself, something, or even your tone, your energy, can just make you different. And so it can be that your business is different, or you as the founder are different, or your energy is different, your team is special, they've got certifications. What is really unique about you that whenever you're talking to someone, you're catching their attention? If you can catch people's attention, you can see it in their eyes, that little like, oh, I want to listen. You could probably get the attention of a federal contract officer or a prime, or, Ruby understands what I'm getting at, which is that as you're interacting, people just glass at you all the time, right? It's part of our culture now. But I don't want it to scare you that this behavior exists, because we see it in society everywhere, so we should expect it from the federal. But as an entrepreneur, you've got to stick out. And something about you has got to stick out, and you've got to know what makes you stick out too. That's what's your advantage. Okay, all right. So there's two approaches to the federal marketplace. Okay, I put them in two areas: air campaign and ground game. Okay, so air campaign is, we have the luxury of the internet. We can go in and just look at documentation. I don't have to drive to the town of Davie. I can go to the procurement website. I can look at the solicitations. I can send a public records request and see who was awarded prior awards. And the staff is smiling because I have to be careful. I always say that and I get myself in trouble. You guys don't. I've had a municipality slap me on the wrist for talking about public records requests. But the purpose of government contracting, for one of the benefits, is that as a resident and as a taxpayer, you are allowed to look at the public records because they're public. And this is actually a good way to actually do research, okay? So we're gonna focus on air campaign right now. And air campaign is, you're flying over, your company is flying over at 30,000 feet, and you're just looking for targets. You're doing reconnaissance work, basically. You're figuring out which target agency. Generally, depending on the sector, I might say, hey, start with 5 to 10 mile radius of your local business, if I'm doing my local business talk. But in the federal government, how many of you can jump on a plane to DC right now? Not everyone, right? So air campaign is how you're gonna do this. You're gonna go and start looking at these federal departments, because some of them are buying things that, it'd be amazing just that they're actually buying it. And you might be in that, you might actually be selling something that one of those 2,500 buying offices are actually buying, right? So use the internet, use your network, but this is our focus for the site, okay? We'll talk about ground game next, okay. All right, SAM.gov, my worst topic. I really hate this. How many of you are registered on SAM.gov? Okay, I heard a sigh. I love that, that's exactly, okay. All right, so SAM.gov, okay. This is, SAM.gov is where you register as a vendor, okay? And you do need some bank account information, you need pieces of information. The key piece here is that make sure you actually register. I can't tell you how many of my small business owners actually don't realize they didn't finish the process, because the way the thing is set up, it's set up in such a way that makes you think you might have done it, and then you're like, you didn't get my cage code, and you're like, oh my goodness, what's that? So I will tell you that as part of our program, I have asked people to log in, then share their screen and let me see their SAM registration, because I just want to build their confidence. I'm like, I just want you to get through this first part, because if you don't have a ticket to the dance, you can't get to the dance, right? You can't get inside the building. So this is the doorway. So do the SAM registration, okay? Now some of you might hire someone to help you, fine, okay? Just don't get killed on price with people, okay? You can actually do this yourself. Some of you may not want to, that's not my, but there is no cost to the process, okay? Now, flip side of this, once you do get registered, you're gonna get like a hailstorm of emails for people just, all types of people, yes, all types of people, and you please be very careful. I had one of our small businesses in the Global Ventures facility actually got super conned, it just got conned, and if it wasn't for he didn't even tell me, he told somebody else in our facility, and they quickly helped him get out of that. But I think he did lose some money as well. So, but anyways, so real quick, you're going to be assigned a UEI number. That's your unique identifying number. Okay, you need to keep that, and then you get assigned a cage code, which is how you get paid. Okay, all right, let's move on. If you're going after the military, there's a second registration, and people don't talk about it, but it's DIBS. Okay, and DIBS is where a lot of the DoD procurement is going through DIBS, not all of it. So you may want to register with DIBS too if you're looking at the Defense Department, okay? Specifically, DLA puts out a lot of items through DIBS. And I noticed a lot of federal procurement presentations don't put that, but I had to add that as I was redrafting this, okay? All right, this is part of my local presentation, but a lot of people will go to SAM and think, okay, I want to go to the town of Davie, I want to go to Broward County, can I do that through SAM? No, the local and state is a whole different vendor registration process. You know, I just wanted to point that out just for clarification. Okay, all right, jumping in, preliminary market analysis. Okay, dipping your feet in the water, all right? So now, you got SAM registered, now what? Everyone's like, now what do I do, right? Because now it's like, oh my goodness, okay, so. In business, the worst two words are market research. People they just die when they hear that. Okay, now, when you hear market research, here's what I'm saying. Okay, how do I make money? So when you hear, I'm redefining that phrase for you. When you do market research, put that word and convert it to how will I even make money in this? That's market research. It's nothing else. Where's the money? Where is the beef? Where is the money? That is market research, okay? It's not like research you did in school for some project term paper. No, you're a business person. You are looking for money. Everything you do in life as an entrepreneur is actually market research. Every conversation, every breakfast, every talk as an entrepreneur is market research, okay? That is how entrepreneurs emerge from the herd, is the ones who are constantly getting the inside baseball. Market research equals inside baseball. Okay? If I don't land that point, I have done nothing today. As an entrepreneur, you are a constant market researcher. But it's not this like standing in front of my computer all the time looking. It's every conversation, every article you read, every little news clipping, you're like, okay, what's going on? Who's that government agency? What are they doing? Oh, okay. PBIA is putting out a new airport wing. Broward County Airport, Fort Lauderdale Airport, they're putting out a wing. Okay, should I be on that? Who do I know is on that team? All of that soap opera is market research. If I don't land that point, you have no chance. You have no chance, okay? All right. All right, so now this is the reconnaissance side of this, okay? So the federal government has specific websites that you can go in and do like specific type of research on spending, okay? So usaspending.gov, usgovernmentspending.com, acquisition.gov, fpds.gov. When you open these websites, your eyes will bleed because you're like, oh my goodness. I mean, even I'm like, oh. So what I want you to do is make sure you've got like a Red Bull or Pepsi or something and some coffee and just a little bit of caffeine, because your goal is you cannot spend like 2 hours on some waste time, okay? What you need to do is like look in there and see if you can find something that will actually be relevant to your business, right? So you're looking, if you're going for USA Spending, you're like, okay, I sell clothing. So what is the federal government spending in clothing? Boom, here's the big number. Who is spending that? Which are the contractors spending that? That's how I want you to do this. You are looking for inside baseball information all the time. Okay, that's how you use these horrible library links. This is recorded, right? These are wonderful opportunities the federal government has presented to the public that gives all the public record information. Okay, got through that. UnisonGlobal.com is one of these sites. It's a private company. They have their own marketplace, and it's a good one to register for if you're selling any type of products. All right, so Unison will have some of those specific solicitations, and then they'll take you to the SAM to like submit it. But it's a really good site, and I encourage it.
Can I ask you one question? Do you have
Yes.
a page I can go to copy all this information?
Yeah, I have, so Leona has the presentation. I've made it open so I don't know if she promised it. Okay, she's not, I don't want to go too far. So if you wanted to send it to everyone.
We're planning on uploading it to our SBDC page and
Excellent.
sharing it.
So it's gonna be on the site.
Yeah.
They're excellent procurement site. So you should be on there for other reasons, but you can get this presentation. So I know you guys are taking pictures. I didn't say anything, but it will be available, okay? Because I take pictures because I need to jog my memory sometimes, so I can't, you know. Teamingpro.com is one of these sites where it's a new small company, and their mission is, okay, the federal government, if you're winning contracts in the federal government, it's spent a lot with teams of companies, okay? So there are companies that do one-off. There are a lot of companies who win their own solicitations, okay? But depending on your sector might be a combination of teams that are winning some of this stuff. So you're gonna have to check within your sector whether people are getting direct wins or whether they're part of a group of companies and they're going after the wins themselves, okay? So teamingpro.com, this company had that vision of like, let's capture all this information on SAM and then put all the vendors across the country, and then by their code, their NAICS codes, their sector codes, you can search across and see who might be a potential teaming partner, okay? Now, when I do this with, confidentially, I usually have people look at it so you can see your competitors. So, but that's just the MBA in me, so it's a nasty streak, I have to admit. But you have to do it both ways, right? So you have to look at your competitors and see who's winning. I actually did this with someone yesterday, and they were a new business partnership. He said, oh, you know, he's federally approved, I can't wait to work with him. I'm like, oh, federally approved, what the heck does that mean? That's not really a phrase we use, there's no one federally approved. So then give me the name of the company. Looked up the name of the company, and I looked and said, oh, okay, well, this amazing federal prime you've got has got $11,000 worth of work with the federal government. I got nothing to say, I'm not degrading them, but it's just a little bit of marketing hyperbole, okay? They're not a con artist, I'm not saying they're over here, I'm just saying that they might be a good teaming partner, but they're not necessarily the prime that they're projecting to you because they've only got a tiny bit of work. That 11K is spread across 3 years, right? So if you're picking primes, you're picking team members, it's all public record, you can go and see this. You can see this information. So Teaming Pro is one way to get at the action. All right, this part of it, the bid portals, you can subscribe to federal contracting bid portals, okay? This would be like, it would go all the way to the floor to how many companies sell this kind of information, okay? Depending on your priority, whether you're really going in the federal marketplace, whether it's just kind of something you're kind of thinking about, you might want to pay and subscribe. You might, okay? That's not my, I just would say, as you go across there, just look at the pricing. Do competitive pricing there, okay? The Deltec happens to be like the gold standard. They're like, but Fed Market, if you can put that down in your notes, they're a good private company that also does a lot of teaching. So you can go on Fed Market and learn about the federal government. Like a part of my presentation, I put something from Fed Market just because it's key information for you. So there are portals, okay? Now, this is the private sector's version of SAM, okay? So when you're looking at SAM, sometimes SAM can just be overwhelming until you get comfortable with it, and you can use one of these portals to assist you. And so that's actually what the PTAC team does. So we use 3. These are the 3 that we subscribed for, so that you don't have to subscribe when you're on the early side of your government contracting experience. So you have access when you're working with us, okay? If you're sending me emails, I'm not answering because I got too many people I'm working with. But when you're in a session with me, I'll open up these bid portals. And that's actually how I was able to assist that guy who was like, telling me he had this prime that he was so excited about. And I said, okay, let's just take a look how much money he's actually got in terms of contracts with the government. So you have access to this through us, okay? And that can be part of our sessions. But that being said, these are three you could also subscribe to, so I do recommend them. So these three. Proxity is a very small company, has the worst user interface, okay? But whoever the IT team is behind that portal, they're really good on the product side. So they get all the product and the technical specs of those products if you're in the product side. This little wiry company has figured out how to like spider into the federal government and get that information really well. So not pretty, but useful. And GovSpend and FedMine are actually local to Broward, matter of fact, they're here locally. And so we have access to that. And a lot of times, if you're looking at, well, I'll get to that. All right, let's keep going. Air campaign is, you gotta start somewhere, all right? You gotta start somewhere. So the basic, nothing profound here. Just pick a federal department you wanna start looking at, okay? When you're on a federal department's website, this is what I want you to grab. The forecast. Somewhere in that lengthy federal website is a forecast. That forecast is critical for you if you're actually trying to get federal work, because then you get to know whatever the next 2-3 years of them actually spending, which means that you can also then change your script in terms of how you talk to a federal contract officer if you actually get them on the phone, right? Or when you leave a voicemail like, here's what you want to say. If you know what they're going to spend in the future, then you actually get to know the agency a little bit, because then you'll figure out what their priorities are, okay? And this will also help you because they're on budget calendars, right? So you also can figure out their budget calendar a little bit, their timeline of spending. Some federal departments like this do a lot of their spending in the summer, before October, the fiscal year, right? Some of them spend all throughout the year, right? So the whole point is go on the department's website, find the forecast. That's the point of this in terms of practical advice. The state and local don't do much forecasting in terms of where they actually put it online. But I will say that if you're on a conversation with a Leona or a Brian, and you're a legit vendor and you come across as really professional, that's a conversation where you could ask, Leona, what's the forecast for the next few years? What are the priorities for the town of Davie? What do you see? And depending on how you handle that conversation with Leona delicately, you can get information that's key. Especially if you're a construction company, you're meeting, forecasting is critical for you, especially, okay?
KJ, just one of the main things that you can look at for construction projects, we have a 10-year capital improvement program that gets approved every September of the fiscal year, so you can always know what's planned ahead, what's planned for fiscal year 2023 or fiscal year 2024, and what the team is looking at for the next 9 years.
Yeah, that's golden right there, okay? Now you're like, well, I'm not in construction, why do I care about the forecast? Well, what if you want to sell to a construction company? Well, you might know that that's happening, so you can have a conversation. Forecasts are critical about the government, and it's really, really helpful to have forecasts. If you do nothing in terms of your market research, getting forecasts of these departments will actually make your time worth it. You're like, okay, I should have a conversation with them at that time, or maybe I need to have a conversation with them at this time. So you can time your life in terms of strategy. Okay, let's take a pause. How are we doing?
Great.
Okay, all right. What's my time? How much time do I have left? Okay. All right. I'm trying to fly through it. I'm trying. I just don't want to bore people. But if we're on pace, how are we? All right. Let me pause you for a moment. Any key questions that I could just answer quick? That's like hot. Any hot questions or hot comment? Yes, ma'am.
Are you going to cover about bonds?
I'm not going to cover bonds today, but I have Tony here, who's connected with one of our surety bond agents. So we can have that conversation with you. offline. Would that be okay? Okay.
On one of your earlier slides,
Yes.
JJ, it said don't lead in your marketing with your certification. Why is that? Why is it something that, from what I've interpreted, from the SBA, like you can have it here but not here? So I'm just curious as to the thought process.
So that's the federal government telling us that.
Okay,
So I'm conveying that message.
okay.
Okay. Now, my real opinion on it is there are some buyers and federal contracting officers that are irritated by you leading with that.
Okay.
Some. Okay, so if you have pub zone or your 8A, there are some that get irritated by it. Okay, but there are some that will be looking for 8A firms or hub zone firms, right? So it's the nature of how you handle the dance. So if you're studying your target and they're answering email and they're getting on the phone with you, or you look at their department website and you can sense, oh, that DEI consultant I saw a org chart for one federal department. The DEI consultant was like literally right next to the director. Like the whole staff was here, but the DEI assistant director was right here. You think I should lead with my certification? Yes, for that department, yes.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Perfect sense. Thank you. That
Okay,
helps.
so, but I have certain messages I have to say.
Okay.
Not great at saying all of them, but you caught it, nice. All right, another hot question? Yes.
Yeah, so for example, in a construction company, can we bid or participate in another trade that is not related on construction? Let's say clothes or,
Yes.
I mean.
I'm messing with you. I could not resist that one. Okay, so what I mean by that, Camila?
Yeah.
So Camila, as a small business consultant, we want our companies, if you're not spreading yourself too thin, to go into other sectors. Okay? So just because all I care about is more revenue and your balance sheet. Doing great, so you can grow. Okay? Now you might, Camila, your construction, what's the name of the company?
Special spaces.
Special Spaces, but DBA Apparel Extraordinaire. So you can go to the state of Florida and create a DBA for like $100, and now you've got a separate brand under your company,
Oh, okay.
and you're DBAing under that. And there's a lot of companies that do a lot of DBAs because you can literally create brands. The state government lets you incorporate DBAs. You can create separate brands. And that doesn't, your accountant loves it because now he or she is like not having to like do accounting. Well, I mean, they'll charge you out the kazoo, for each company they have to do accounting for, right? But if for you, for financial control, you've got your LLC or your partnership, your Inc., and now you've got DBAs, and you've got a set of customers that are tied to that DBA, that brand.
So that's all running under the same LLC, then you brand.
Well,
it.
wait, I cannot give legal advice.
DBA
All I
is a
gave was
fictitious
incorporation advice.
Oh. So
Y'all
it's like
heard,
how
wait,
we
y'all
give
heard me, right?
special-
I did not give legal advice, I
Well,
gave
they're all one
incorporation
company.
advice.
Yes.
Oh.
But if your cage code.
Oh. Okay, I'm just teasing. What was your name?
Tina.
Tina. You look very familiar. Have we? Yes, we've met before. Oh, I just realized. Oh, I was like. Okay, yes. Yeah, it's good to see you again.
But if your page code kind of has you boxed in with certain business services, then how would you be able to?
Brilliant question. Brilliant question. So, this is a smart group. I'm glad I worked. I'm glad I kind of worked on this presentation. That's an excellent question. So what Tina asked is, well, your cage code is universal, right? So then, you could create confusion. Well, my opinion is the finance side cares not. Where the buyers, they will be tied to the loyalty to that DBA brand that you built. But all the finance people know is, let's just pay this thing out to. So it doesn't have to be as confusing with your government agencies because they're accustomed to doing it with other companies too. And the reason, let me explain it this way. So, I've only used the word bureaucracy once, right? So I'll use it one more time because I can't insult my host here. So the thing about bureaucracy, okay, the nice thing of bureaucracy, if there's a nice thing, is that somebody behind the desk wants things simpler. And so government buyers will never say this out loud, I'll say it for them, is that trying to get their own paperwork down to manageable levels is critical for them. So if a trusted business comes to them on this sector, and then they bid on another thing, and they're still a trusted vendor of the agency, my selection committee might look at that and say, you know what, they've done really well here. Looks like they want to come out on this side of the fence. I'm not mad at them. All right, I'm gonna move.
Yeah.
Okay, was that helpful? Okay, and we all needed a break and breather, right? Because it just gets, this is like, I haven't even gotten even halfway through this. Okay, all right, so, all right, now, this is the page I hate the most, okay? But this is the page you need to know. The federal government is run by FAR, okay? So that everything related to FAR, every government presentation will have this in there. I only put it to one slide because I just can't have my eyes bleed. So you just need to know is that the federal government has a lot of lawyers and they're able to put all of this together, okay? So in every federal solicitation, you'll see a FAR and a number next to it, okay? For the love of all that's good, please throw that FAR number into your browser and just scan and read, okay? Just scan and read. It's intimidating, but you've got some, cafecito next to you, or you have something that'll give you a little bit of boost. Just kind of look at it, okay? And just list those FARs there, and just throw it in your browser and just read it. And you'll see the FAR policy pop up, and I just want you to review it. This is part of your market research, and if you're going after a federal solicitation, they bake everything, the buyers, how they handle the FAR, and they also interpret it differently too. So if you don't read it, then you won't know, you could get bitten because the way they might interpret it, right? So they have to follow these rules, so please just read them as best as you can. Just eyeball it, scan it, right? This is actually what scares a lot of contractors away from the federal government is the FAR. And so I'm asking you, the first phrase I said at the beginning of this presentation is my goal is to build your confidence. I would like you to just do your best, and every solicitation you go for, look at the FARs. Just be as part of one of the due diligence that you do on each solicitation. This is part of it. And after a while, some of these FARs will just become familiar over time. Because it's your sector, so you'll see the different policies that they're putting, okay? And familiarity breeds, trying to make a new code there. Okay, so the Defense Department has its own version, okay? So if you're going after the military, they've got their own link, so please. And my goal is, I don't care, at the beginning of this I said, I don't care what stage you're at, no one can dictate your level of growth, okay? You dictate your level of growth. So, if you want to pursue the military, then there are certain realities that you need to kind of look at. All right, I'm going to move on. All right. Okay, so everybody in my role, this is literally our preaching all the time, okay? And so the capability statement is a one-page promo of your company, and it's a really good thing to have. Let me put it that way. Okay, it's a really good thing to have. And it basically is a snapshot. And this is an example of one. And so you'll see they put the contact information, a blurb about the company, their different things that they offer, okay? And then you'll see that they've got their government ID numbers, so like the cage code, like Tina mentioned. DUNS, this is an old, so this won't be DUNS, it'll be UEI. So they're putting it there. And then a key piece of this is the NAICS codes, okay? How many of you know what NAICS codes are? Okay, half the room, good. So there's two codes, okay? Well, there's actually several. But the federal government uses NAICS, okay? The Department of Commerce, like I think they produce these sectors. So this is so 561311 is employment placement agencies, 561312 executive search services. You see how these 5 numbers, it matches one of these areas really well. Like so, they put all of these services up, but they've only put 5 NAICS codes. So now they've tunneled themselves into HR, which actually is not even on this. I guess you could say it's here. So now you've said you've got all these services you offer, but the NAICS codes you selected when you registered for SAM is now tunneled this company to just those. Is that? Yes. What was your name?
My name is Will.
Will.
Well, Alejandro.
Alejandro.
So, let's say I'm going after a contract and I can always just add an NICS code, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I have to wait like 48 hours for the update.
Yeah, I think it's 24 to 48 hours. So this is just, if you don't know what I mean, so if we go to your clinic, your doctor, they've got medical billing codes, right? This is just a version of codes of like this is how the federal government or even companies, like they pay attention to these specific codes so they can figure out what type of company you are and who they're dealing with. This also is how solicitations are pushed through the marketplace through these NAICS codes, okay? So if I use one of those portals that I have access to, I will take the codes that you picked, I'll dump it into one of those search criteria, and then all the solicitations for that specific code will populate, right? More often than not, if this was my client, they're in Hawaii, which would be nice, but nonetheless, if they have 5 of these codes, I'll put all of those codes so that I can get all of the solicitations, and then I'll just like work with this Hawaiian company and just kind of say, hey, these are the solicitations, you want to go after this one, you want to go after this one, let's open it up, let's look at it, do an eyeball scan. Do you think you want to go after this? Okay, next one. Get the idea? That's the utility of these codes. So the government really organizes itself around these codes. And so if you're presenting yourself to the federal government, to the state, or the city, federal government NAICS codes. In the local arena, town of Davie and city of Sunrise, they use something called NIGP, National Institute of Government Procurement, NIGP. That's a set of codes used by local. It correlates okay with these, okay? So if you're going after, local, like the school district, you'll need NIGP codes, okay? That's not the presentation today, but I just want to use that as a comparison contrast. All right. Now here's a 2-page, okay? So this is a company that's a federal contractor who's kind of, I know it's kind of hard to read, so I'll just go through it. So they've got some federal certifications. They've got 8A. They've got the HUD zone. They're a small business. They have a GSA contract, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Here are their state certifications. So they've got with DC, then they have the state certification with Maryland State and Virginia. And then they're doing work with local government. So you get the idea of how this company is projecting itself. So a capability statement, as you're building it, it's a really nice little marketing piece to kind of organize yourself when you're going after any solicitation. Now, Leona's team may not be accustomed to seeing a capability statement, but wouldn't hurt to throw it into a solicitation if you're going after town of Davie so that they see, oh, as Brian mentioned earlier, they've got a GSA schedule. If they had a GSA schedule, they're working with the federal government, they're a solid vendor. Now your points on your evaluation or your impression you've created within the city is changing. So local school districts, cities don't use capability statement. This is a federal marketplace attribute, but it doesn't hurt to use it, as a marketing promo for local government as well. Does that make sense? So they listed their major clients, right? And this is critical here because when you're presenting on any solicitation for federal, state, and local, those buyers or the selection committee, if they see your other clients, you have now gotten a seal of approval. Your response to the solicitation, you've now positioned yourself differently against the other solicitations. Because they might read all this other stuff, but they will hone in on this. Because now, if some other crackpot thought they could buy from you and they did okay, then maybe we should too. The government is basically trying to mitigate risk. So if you've got these great brands, and then, this is something else, but, this is different. So notice all of the different NAICS codes. So Tina, look at this for a second. Engineering services, graphic design services, executive search. So their NAICS codes are everywhere, but you guess what? They probably have enough contracts in these other different areas that they won, that they just expanded NAICS codes in, they just went buck wild with it. But they've won the work. Either through their primes, right? So here's their primes, Accenture, Pricewaterhouse, Midwest Consulting. And then on their government side, Department of Consumer Regulatory Affairs, Virginia Power, Maryland MDOT. You see how they broke that up? This is the most valuable part of a capability statement, which is now you understand when I said, if you're building your company seriously, and you've got happy customers, then you can list it in your marketing, whether it's a capability statement or your website. You get the flow of this? Okay, all right. But I hope it kind of gives you a sense of strategy. All right. There are some companies who develop a PowerPoint slide deck capability. It's your call. Okay. This is critical for me in terms of our conversation today. I want you to lobby for your company. If you're going after federal work or state work or local work, you are the person who's lobbying for your company, okay? So we can be upset that somebody else is lobbying for another company, but who's gonna lobby for you? Who's gonna put you in the best light? If you're not putting yourself in the best light, who's gonna do it for you, right? So I want you to think, if you take anything away from this and you said, that guy was like preaching at us about a lot of stuff. One of my preachings today is lobby for yourself. Put yourself in a good strategic position, right? Whenever you're in a public space or whenever you're interacting with email, always put yourself, I'm going to repeat this lesson later, but lobby your company, right? No one can carry the message like you can. Which means that, so let me pause on this. So I've got federal contractors who are large. I've got some federal contractors that are tiny because they were so savvy that they burrowed themselves in the federal government and got a subcontract. One's doing direct work. I won't say anything about him other than he figured it out, right? So I always laugh when I think about it because I'm like, there's so much work, but only an entrepreneur can figure out how to like finagle in and get that. Way ahead of his competition.
Speaking of which, I have
Yes,
a
ma'am.
friend who's
Name again?
Stephanie.
Stephanie.
Yes,
thank you.
I have a friend who's into government contracts, and he was telling me that there are even contracts that are so small that they don't even like list them. They just have their trusted vendors and they just send
Yes.
it over to them.
Yes. So I'm not even there, but ground game is, so air game, I spent a lot of time on air game, but ground game is how you truly get inside baseball, right? So there are small companies that will take a visit to DC. They won't tell you, but they'll go to Tallahassee. They'll go to that party where the mayor's ball in Palm Beach County. You know what I mean? They'll show themselves in different places. Because when you show yourself, especially when I was in government, I loved seeing entrepreneurs in the building. They're just talking to us, and the government workers, we just kind of, but we're staring, right? Because we're like, who's that? You know, oh, I've seen them at this meeting. Michelle and I had this conversation. You know, I've seen them, right? So now let's give you the flip side of that, Michelle. When I, as a government worker, see that company in the building, I think of them as more real because they have the time to come in and do work with the city in some way or have conversations. So then the inside talk in that city or in that government agency is, Michelle, yeah, we've seen her. She's part of this community. We see her at meetings. She's great. A flippant comment by a government worker about a company can go a long way. So when you show yourself, you know, because government people like me and Leona, we're human too. Like we, you know, even these federal buyers or these private, they're human too. So they're on LinkedIn looking at, you know, the pictures on LinkedIn and, you know, they're on Facebook looking at the different companies. I guarantee you how you present yourself on Facebook. There are government people who, you know, throw in a direct message and say, hey, you should look at, you know, what's going on over here. It happens a lot. Okay? So Stephanie, yes to what your friend said, and even more. Because why? Because so much procurement happens informally, non-formally, where it's still competitive, but there's a trusted set of vendors who have presence in that agency in some way, shape, or form, that those government buyers and those decision makers in that agency feel like, hey, okay. The flip side of that is that's part of the rigging too, but you know, rig things for yourself, morally and you know. Okay, all right. Quickly, commercial website. Okay, this is a little bit of a rant. If you have a digital footprint, have a nice digital footprint. Okay. If you don't have a digital footprint, okay, fine, right? You're winning work without it. But if you choose to go public, put a little money behind that digital footprint. Okay, make sure the website. Andrea just like.
Let's hope.
Andrea just rolled her eyes. It's easy for us to say, okay, but it's just a struggle for us. That's why I'm feeling what Andrea's putting out, and Tony. But we do want you to like present, just like I said, how you present yourself at the facility, on campus, or in the building, at the government officials. You're out here in the public. You're out here internationally, globally, and someone can go to your website and be like, okay, well, I'm moving on, right? But when you actually have a decision maker, a small group of decision makers actually, I shouldn't say small, but small group of decision makers will go to the website. If I'm in front of a selection committee or if I have to make a decision, I want to check if the website conveys that I am not crazy to procure from the, like, if a buyer has to award you, they have to feel very comfortable with you, right? If we're going to get married, you've crossed a couple, you've not set up a lot of red flags. You follow? So your web presence, your social media presence, all of that can play a factor. At the minimum, your website will definitely play a factor, okay? But if you have the discipline to have good marketing collateral, I imagine, Stephanie, maybe you can tell me different, that you will want to also have your digital footprint of the same quality. Yes?
Yeah, keep it consistent.
Okay. It's great to have experts in the room. Okay. Does that mean you should spend a whole bunch of money on your website? I'm not saying that. I just have a solid commercial presence, okay? So what I do when I'm working with people, I just say, okay, show me your competitor's website. What do they look like? I have no competitors. Okay. How about an indirect competitor? What do their websites look like? Right? Let's just kind of look at this. I don't do a lot of the small business consulting as much, but once in a while when I've got someone who's kind of, whoa, okay, you know, here's what the competitor looks like. Let's look at their NAICS codes, but look at the feel of their website. So then I, once in a while, encourage people, I hate having that conversation because it's out of my scope, but I'm like, you gotta get a better website because a government decision maker is not gonna like this. I hate to tell you that, but I will tell you. So anyways, profiles. Once you register with SAM, they have a separate website for your SBA profile, okay? A small constituency of the federal government will actually look at your SBA profile. As they're looking at your website, they'll then look at the SBA profile just to be like, oh, is that filled out? And you're like, what is an SBA profile? Well, basically, the federal government takes your SAM registration and creates its own capability statement about your company. And you gotta go in, if you don't know this, you gotta go in and make sure you fill it out, make sure it's consistent. And if you don't have that profile, it could work against you at the worst possible time sometimes if you don't have that complete. And sometimes they don't update it properly. So this, I had to point that out, that there's a separate law, there's a separate step after SAM to make sure your SBA profile is done well, okay? And there's a whole different login you can create, and you go in and you gotta update it. All right, how are we doing?
Good.
Good? Are these practical steps make sense?
Yes.
Okay, that was my goal. So you could also do a profile on team. I should put LinkedIn in here as well, but people have different opinions on LinkedIn. So I am not a marketer, so I don't want to get into that conversation with you. But I will tell you, with my opinion on the contracting side, that the LinkedIn profile plays a role in terms of if I'm looking at your SBD profile and then I look at your website, I'm the guy who looks at the LinkedIn profile first before I go to the website. So I'm that guy, right? So when I was on selection committees, I want to know who the founder is. I want to see how they lay out on LinkedIn. But that's me. So when I was doing selection, I got to put my vote. I got to calculate my points, and I got to look at those points and like, okay, well, who is this company, right? I got all their paperwork, but like, who are they? you know, so but that's just my opinion, that's just kind of my, take it for what it's worth. Somebody had,
Yeah, I had a quick question.
Yes, Stephanie.
Speaking of LinkedIn, I also write content, you know, in regards to what I do and how I can help, you know, customers get value. Would that look good for me or help me for government procurement as well? Like, if they see me like actually
Yeah.
write content?
The answer is, like I said, yes, 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 and yes. Yeah, you present your brand how you want to present it, and then when you go after solicitations in that, you've got documentation that backs you, right? So let's say you did the LinkedIn Pulse and you got, you know, lots of content. That says a lot about you, that as in terms of a graphic designer, a marketer, and a PR, because government is all about a lot of PR. Like they're controlling the message is a big. Okay, I'm just trying to say that in a way that's okay. Yeah, it's okay. So on the government side, PR, the word is public information. So there are actually offices that are public information officers. They are hired at I know at the local and state level. I don't know at the federal government. I don't see PIOs, but just as a conversation between you and I, Stephanie. PIO officers are basically public relations officers, but they have specific messages they send out to residents.
Mhm.
And there are PIO companies too, you know, so anyways.
Thank you.
All right, I finally got to ground game. Whew, okay. Individual personal contact by phone, email, DM. Okay, so I already admitted to you that they don't respond, but that isn't everybody. That isn't everybody, okay? I was thinking how to say this. So, if you don't have ground game, because it's the federal government, the challenge that you might face is not everything is in DC. So, we've got a federal courthouse here in Broward, right? This is, state of Florida is Southern Command. So we have bases here. I see eyes opening. So there are federal facilities, you don't even realize all of them that are around you. It's kind of like, it's like the town of Davie. They've got several facilities and programs going on in the town that, because it's not relevant to you, you don't know what that building's about, okay? So the federal government is all over the United States. So when I say ground game, don't think just DC, that I've got to go to DC. Think, what federal buildings are in my area? So like, I live in a town that, it's called a village, and the Department of Agriculture has an office because I'm close to the farming community. So they have an office. Oh, sorry. I'm thinking about that, I forget about that. So if I was going after the Department of Agriculture, I can pop into that local office. And these federal procurement, federal officers and federal staff are everywhere, you just don't realize it. And they're also good at staying off radar.
So how do you find out about all that? Like, local.
So if you're doing your preliminary market analysis and you're just using the 30,000 foot and you're just like, you know, I'm looking at the Department of Justice, and does the Department of Justice have a local office? They've got to, because the DOJ runs the FBI. The FBI has two major offices. One especially is in Miami, right? So if I want to do law enforcement and actually be selling to the FBI, because they gotta get pencils and hats and stuff. It's all not just weaponry. So now I'm starting to figure out, well, who do I know at the FBI? Or who do I, so if you don't do that preliminary work to find the federal players that might be in your local area, I kid you not, you've got competitors that are winning federal work because they just like sat down at a party or a dinner or at a wedding or funeral with a public federal staffer that's in the area, and they're like, oh, well, you should talk to this, this, and this. So all I'm saying is open your eyes. Your ground game on the federal side does not mean ground game flight to DC. It means who's here. So we have an Air Force base in North, okay, that's secret. So there are federal facilities that are close by here that, you know, if you did a little bit of research, depending on what you want to sell, you might identify them. Let's say that. So this stuff is like closer to touch than you realize, right? So I'm on the team, I'm always pushing people local. Andrea and Tony know, I love local. But the reality is that these federal players are here because of their, whatever projects that are going on, right? So, and if nothing else, Southern Command is in Florida, South Florida. Southern Command in Tampa, especially Tampa, but here in Miami and Broward and North Florida. We are, as far as national interest is concerned, there's a lot of national interest when it comes to Florida, right? We are occupied by a huge body of water on both sides. So that means the whole Navy supply chain, somebody's gonna sell to the Navy supply chain, right?
So wait, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
go ahead.
So if I wanted to find
I think
out
I'm
what,
almost getting
what
there.
grants were available,
Yeah, I see
like
it.
in the town of Davie, I would go to the town of Davie.
So let me pause here for a moment, we'll come back. I went over time and there's so much information. Was there enough practical information that's workable?
Yes.
Okay, because I can't do 2 hours, but you can see how most of these seminars, if you do, they're actually 3-hour seminars separated by 3 different speakers. My whole goal was to make this like accessible to you, but not like inflate it, like a fantasy, but like keep your dream of like, okay, how do we envision this, okay? So I think I have like 10, 20 more slides out here. And I'm just gonna fly through them without talking so you can see what's left, so when you go into it. So this is where I was gonna talk about primes. This is strategy. This is not super important. And then this is a good place to start. So identifying 2 to 5 agencies you want to target. This is how you kind of want to approach it. Start with a biteable chunk, and then work yourself, right? The other part of this, which is you saw those goldfish, who are the primes that are getting all of the work in your sector? If your sector has larger companies that are eating up most of the pond, then you need to interact with your primes. If it's free and open and your sector is like, you could go after it all directly and you could be the prime, cool. But some of your sectors like construction and some of these other areas, IT is one of these things where like there's a lot of teaming that goes on in IT. But if you're in weaponry or some type of products, you can sell direct, right? But some of these sectors, you got to figure out who are the bigger companies, and if I'm going after the work, do I have to work with them? Do I have to work under them? Those are questions you need to ask. And that means that your networking is not just federal government, state, and local, but it's also the large primes that are eating that work. And that's a big conversation. Okay.
Can I just ask, in the capability statement, can you put in that you work for a prime?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
As a
Just do it in
subcontractor?
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. If we were working together, we'd kind of look at that a little bit more closely. So I said this before, make a strong impression whenever you're interacting with when you're in public, you know, you gotta have, this is our parents talking to us, like they always say, just be good, right? But it really matters in business more so than anything, because especially in our society, I think we develop prejudice, so we fight against prejudice so hard, but we've become more prejudicial in certain ways, which is really strange to me. It's really strange. So there's a lot of prejudices that may not necessarily be racial, ethnic, or gender, but other type of prejudices in terms of class or just, so as you're speaking to people, this stuff plays out. I mean, it's stuff we tell our kids, our nephews and nieces, but in business, we don't realize these little things like can screw a whole opportunity that won't come to us. So if I can just emphasize, wherever you're at, leave a strong impression, because even if it's like your 4th call, 7th voicemail, keep the tone right? Keep the email right? After the 3rd email, you're like, you're not answering me. now they're actually looking at the email, and they skipped the other 2. They're, oh, this guy's angry. Well, they didn't read the other 2, but they're just seeing the angry one. It's just, you know. All right. I have a whole section on the GSA. I'm going to skip through that. That's so this is where I'm going to close. Okay. So this is. I don't see this on any presentation on federal contracting, so I had to bring it to you. So this is the federal FAN, okay? These are all the contract vehicles that the the buyers buy off of. Okay? So if you get in contact with the federal contracting officer, you want to ask them, what contract vehicle are you buying off of? Just like you go to Town of Davie and you ask Brian and his team, what piggyback are you guys working with? What cooperative purchasing agreement are you guys working with? I can't tell you how many small businesses will do the ground game, go to the buyer or go to the decision maker and realize only then that buyer is, they're not soliciting it competitively, they're buying off of the contract vehicle. The federal government is full of contract vehicles. So when I tell you that the federal government is run by 40 large companies, that's a hard thing for me to say because it gives you this sense of how deeply rigged the economy is, okay? 40 large primes run the US government, okay? I say that to the very end as I'm closing out because I'm not here to inflate fantasies, but I am here to keep the dream alive. But I've been talking to, because I'm here on Earth with you, and you're like, well, why am I even going to do this if there's only 40 large contractors running it? Well, the Tier 140 have to sell, they have, somebody's got to do their work for them, because they aren't going to do the work. No, I shouldn't say that. That's not what I'm saying. Well, they have the lobbyists that they can keep sending into DC, but someone's got to do that work. And I guarantee you, if it's not local businesses in Florida doing that federal work, it's going to be local businesses in Texas doing that work, or it's going to be local businesses in Michigan doing that work. So why not us? It's rigged, fine, right? But why not us? Why aren't we getting in there and breaking in? So I've laid in a hard contrast for you, but it doesn't mean entrepreneurs in South Florida can't win that if we aren't savvier. So if I arm you with something, these different contract vehicles are how the federal buyers are buying. So if you go after a solicitation and you do your research and then you're going after the federal contracting officer, you're going after the prime, you want to know how the money is being spent through the channels. And there's going to be contract vehicles. So when you open this presentation, you can go through and just do some browser search on each of these contract vehicles, so that you're armed. Okay. So I got to stop there because there's different types. But I just, as you can see, I made it. Okay. All right. All right. So Carol Hart and Christy are our two federal contract officers. I'm the local guy. But I was like, I'm never gonna get through this thing. So, yeah, support the crowd, I appreciate it. Okay, so our role here, I've just given you like 5 meetings worth of federal contracting information because I believe in you. I came in with a belief in you. I get to work with superb professionals like Andrea and Tony, and we're public servants, and we want contractors. So we'll commiserate on the line with you because you're like, I know that was tough and that sucked, but can you finish that business plan so we can get it to Tony to get it to the bank? Just, I know you hate it. I hate it too. I hate business plan, but just do it. So, we all need a coach.
Yeah.
We all need coaching to move to the next level. We all need it because we all are frail in some way, shape, or form, right? So you have this team. You don't have to even pay for us. There's no billable. Utilize us, okay? And so we're on the PTAC side. I do have a bias toward local. So that's my bias because I like small companies building their portfolio in the local scene and then, emerging, right? But some companies, it's better for them to actually go federal first because local is kind of locked up in certain ways in their sector, so they need to go federal. So I accept that reality. So there are like trucking companies, when I meet with a trucking sector firm, I never go local because this is always painful conversations at the local. So you and I would probably just go, what is the United States Postal Office doing? We'll start there. USPS, they're hauling that mail, they've got truckers, so I'm like, so how many trucks do you have, and so then we look at those solicitations, and so So there's no way how you skin the pear, skin the orange, or yeah. So however you want to do that, however you want to cut this, they're an entrepreneur. You can figure it out. We're here to be a part of that process. I didn't want to say skin the cat because it sounds like a cat lover here, and that's not a way to close. Okay, so that's Tony.
Oh my God.
Sorry, it's a little granular. And that's us. Okay. All right. Thanks for staying with me. You stayed on the train. Thank you. You guys are very patient. I appreciate it. So I'll stick around. I'm going to hand it over to Leon.